So, in this video, we'll be talking about the biggest mistake I made when I bought my first buy-to-let property. If you watched my first video, I broke down the real numbers on my first buy-to-let property. And in that video, I mentioned that I made a few mistakes. But looking back now, there was one mistake in particular, and this had the biggest impact on my returns. And it's something I see loads of investors doing. At the time, I didn't even realize it was a mistake, but obviously now I do. So in this video, I'm going to break down what the mistake actually was, how it impacted my numbers, what I do differently now, and also how you can avoid doing the same thing. Quick disclaimer before we get into it. This is not financial advice. This is just my own personal experience. Everybody's situation is different, so always do your own research. So to begin, let's just do a quick recap on my property. My very first buy-to-let was a 3-bedroom semi-detached house in Middlewich. I bought it for £160,000. I put down a £40,000 deposit and I spent about £10,000 doing the property up. And now this property currently rents for £960 per calendar month. And at the time, I thought, yeah, that is a solid deal. And honestly, I was buzzing about it. But looking back now, maybe it wasn't. So what was the big mistake that I made? Well, I didn't focus on cash flow whatsoever. I just bought a safe property. Instead of thinking of a strong investment, at the time I was thinking, I want something nice. I want a property that I'd personally live in myself. And I didn't want to take much risk whatsoever, which sounds sensible, but that mindset is exactly what led to this mistake. Because what I ended up with was a property that looks good, but doesn't perform well financially. So let's break it down simply. The rent on this property is £960 per calendar month. But that's not all profit. Out of that, I've got the mortgage, which is about £590 per calendar month. Estate agent fees, which is 8% of my rent. Insurance to pay. Repairs when they come up. And then the tax on top of all that. When you actually break it all down, I'm making around £120 profit per calendar month. That's the real number. And that's exactly where I went wrong. I didn't ask myself, what will I actually make each month after everything? So let's talk about why I actually made this mistake in the first place. And I'm sure a lot of people can probably relate. At the time, I had no experience whatsoever. I wasn't watching property YouTube channels. I wasn't running proper numbers. I literally just wanted to get started. And honestly, getting started isn't a bad thing, but it does mean you are gonna make some mistakes. Looking back now, it is a decent property. It's a standard 3-bedroom house. It's in a decent area, and it does get a very average rental yield. So it's not a bad property whatsoever. It's just not a great investment. There is a difference. And of course, if I could go back in time, there are a few things that I personally would do differently. I'd focus way more on the numbers, not just can I rent it, but what's left over every single month after everything is paid. I also wouldn't buy a property based on what I personally like. This is a big one. I bought something that I'd personally be happy living in myself. But tenants and investors don't always want the same things. So now I'd purely focus on what property would give me the best returns. And I'd also think long term from the start. Because now I'm thinking about creating a portfolio. I'm thinking about cash flow, scaling, and also using the right structure. Back then I was thinking, let's just get a property and see how it goes. And I do get asked with this Middlewich property that I own, people do ask me, so was it a bad deal? And this is important because no, it wasn't a bad decision. It wasn't a bad deal because even though the cash flow isn't great, it is still making money. It has gone up in value. It got me started. It got me on the property ladder and I've learned loads from it. And that last one is the biggest thing. And talking about what it has actually taught me. From this one property, I've learned how buying actually works, how renovations work, how tenants work, and how the numbers play out in real life. And now because of that, I will not be making the same same mistake again. So I have now started doing things differently. I'm now focusing on better yields, stronger monthly cash flow, long-term planning, and building a proper portfolio. And I'm also looking at buying through a limited company instead of my personal name, and scaling much more strategically. But if you take anything away from this video, remember your first deal doesn't have to be perfect. But you do need to understand the numbers, because there's a massive difference between a property that works and a property that actually performs. So the biggest mistake I made on my first buy-to-let was not focusing enough on the actual profit. But at the same time, it did get me started. It taught me a lot, and it's set me up to do better going forward. So if you are thinking about getting into property, just make sure you understand the numbers before you buy it. And if you want to follow this journey as I build it out, make sure to subscribe, because I will be sharing everything, the good, the bad, and the real numbers behind it all.